All right, so we'll do a little recap from last week and then get into to today's lesson. Today's lesson is not exactly word for word. Some of it is, and I should have put quotes on everything, but I have this. Me and Tammy went through this parenting program that was part of a ministry of a family that from a church that we were in Little Rock, and it was called "Growing Kids God's Way: Reclaiming the heart of your child with God-centered purpose" from Gary and Ann Ezzo, and really good stuff. Really lays out what encouragement, discipline, parenting, what it's all about, from the foundations of where it should start from, and then goes all the way into specific instances of either discipline or correction. And that's what I wanted to bring to you. Last week, we talked about discipline. And remember, I know a lot of times when we say the word discipline, the first thing that probably comes up in our mind is spanking, right? Swats, something like that. That's what we think of when we think of discipline. That's not really the full semantic range of that term. Discipline includes positive and negative. This can't be stressed enough. And it needs both. You have to have both positive and negative teaching and correction. So teaching, you're inputting that which is good. Correction, you're driving out that which is bad with the rod of correction. If you remember from last week, there was a Net Bible note that said that the rod of correction is a metonymy, so it's a figure of speech where the rod, which is the lesser thing or one instrument, is representative of the whole plethora of ways that you can correct and discipline. So just because it says the rod of correction doesn't mean every infraction requires spanking. That's not what the Bible's teaching. It's just teaching that there needs to be discipline. There needs to be discipline when you're raising your children. But it needs to be both positive and negative. From this Growing Kids God's Way book, and it's like a DVD series. There's like lectures. It's kind of like Faith Bible Institute. Fill in some blanks and about it and stuff. Anyways, really good. You need to balance do's and don'ts, right? Restraining waywardness must be accompanied by instruction in righteousness. There's a moral difference between merely controlling your anger and being sensitive to how other people feel in situations. Teaching your kids to do deeds of kindness is greater than teaching them not to be unkind. So there's a moral difference there, right? There's a difference between someone that can practice empathy and try and understand where someone else is coming from, and them just straining to control their own because they don't understand where that. There's a moral difference there. You should be teaching both, right? You should restrain your anger, but you should also try and understand where another person is coming from. This is an illustration that I've used before, but I think it works a lot. If you only teach the negative and you don't teach the positive, leave a void, right? It's like trying to pick a place to eat. You go, hey, how about Raising Cane's? No, I don't want to eat there. That's my go-to. Like, it's just a default. If we can't decide, we're going there, right? You should have a default. Like, I'm already driving this direction. If you want to go somewhere else, let me know. But I'm already going in this direction. We're not going to spend 20 minutes going, I don't want that. I don't want that. We haven't gotten anywhere closer to actually eating if you tell me what you don't want. Right? It's like, tell me what you do want, but that's more difficult. Right? There it is. Balance, right? Balance. We need balance. Negative moral training leaves a void that may cause serious moral compromise in the future. When a greater emphasis is placed on teaching children what not to do and too little on what to do, the path for virtuous deeds is left highly undefined for the child. As a result, children understand what is not the right thing to do, but they never completely grasp what is the right thing in the situation. You need both. And especially with The littles, it seems like you spend most of your time, don't, and it's like, the only word I know, no, like, wow, what's going on here? But there needs to be encouragement and teaching along with the correction. So, general things that we learned from Proverbs last time was to discipline your children is to love them. If you don't discipline your children, teach them the way that they should go, you actually hate them. You just have no regard for their future. You don't discipline. Don't hate your children. Bad things come to those who don't listen to instruction and reproof. In correction, the consequences have to have teeth, right? It has to be painful. Now, is that physical pain? Not always, but the consequence has to have something to it, so it teaches a lesson. But there is a place for physical punishment. And physical punishment can have a spiritual benefit by associating that pain with that bad moral thing that the child did. So again, our launching point today is Proverbs 22:15. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. Foolishness is already there. Take a moment and think about that. And which theological doctrine does that lean on? Like, it's in nature, that's right. So like what? No, that's exactly right. But you'd be, I don't know, maybe you'd be surprised, maybe you wouldn't. There are, I don't know, I can't say that they would be biblical people, but anyways, there are people that would be like, no, kids are innocent. And in a sense, they are, because they're not knowledgeable in the ways of the world. They're innocent in that regard. But you don't have to teach them how to do wrong. They will do that on their own. They are self-oriented. Children come out self-oriented, not other-oriented. Problem with that is biblical ethics, other-oriented. So there's going to be conflict. Kid's going to catch a bad case of mine-itis. And unless you do something about it, that will grow, and then they'll get more sophisticated and manipulative as they get older, and it can branch out into a lot of different ways. They're not good for them and not good for your family. So foolishness is already there. By nature, they're self-oriented. So conflict will arise because biblical ethics, what we're trying to teach them, is other-oriented. So parents have the duty to punish foolishness and replace foolishness with moral principles. That's what a parent's duty is. And foolishness, this is like deceitfulness, like planning out how you're going to get away with something. It's rebellion, like that's foolishness. It's a haughty look. It's talking back. It's outright rebellion against authority. That's what foolishness is. And Gary and Ann Ezzo, they make a distinction between foolishness and childishness. We'll get into that probably next week. But just know that foolishness is already bound in the heart of a child. Already there. They have a sin nature. It's going to come out ways that you'll observe and that you'll need to correct. But it starts with us as the parents. And it starts with Deuteronomy 6:4-7. I'll just read that aloud for you. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, all thy soul, all thy might. And these words, which I command thee this day, shall be in thine heart. That's to the parents. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children. Here's the parenting task. And shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou riseth up. There's parenting in a nutshell. Or there's principles that we can learn and apply to parenting right here in a nutshell. 3 moral principles. First, you need to know the God of moral truth. Right? Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, mind, soul, strength. Right? There's only one God to please, and it's not you. Once you know that for yourself, you can pass that on to your child. His morality stems from his character, and we are training our children to be like him, not necessarily like us. But we have a lot of influence. So our kids will likely turn out to be a lot like us. So how close are you to God? It won't be the only determining factor, but it'll be a large influence on how close your children will be to God. Number 2, parents are to live God's moral truth. Moral training starts with the parents. It is the parents' job to train their children, not the Sunday school teacher, not the pastor, not the school district. Parents. Parents have the greatest moral influence on their children, whether by intent or neglect. Like, if you fail to discipline your children, that will have an effect on them. Or if you are intentional about it, that will have an effect on them. Either way, there's no neutral ground. Parents have the unique position to teach moral principles and then validate them in everyday living. The daily stuff you do in your home. You cannot give what you do not possess. It starts with you, parent. And then from that experience, this is principle number 3, you teach your children that truth. Moral training takes place during the normal activities of the day, when you lie down, walk in the way. Moral truth is best communicated in times of non-conflict, when the child is not in a position to have to defend his or her actions. A great example of this yesterday, in the car, waiting 2 hours to get to the fair. It was wild. How many cars? Was it worth it? It was eventually. But one, it was a great opportunity to teach the girls patience, right? Nobody likes to sit in line, right? Nobody. But it's like, hey, you know what? We're going to sit here. Hey, let's find a game to play. Like, look up a YouTube video of Would You Rathers and talk about it. Whatever. Playing through the speakers. You know, it's fun. Or, oh, do you recognize these Disney songs? Plays a snippet. Oh, that's from this movie. Or whatever, you know, whatever. Fill the time. Do something. Well, we're getting, like, been sitting in the car for a very long time. And everything's pretty much fine. We're getting real close to actually turning in a park. You know, like, off. Yeah, that's wild. Anyways, and this car pulls up and tries to cut in front of this giant, it's like half a mile long line. You know, that lane is a half mile long. The other lane is open for through traffic. They just go down that and then try and cut in. Like, no, this isn't happening. Sitting in the car for 2 hours. But they're getting very close. They try to do it to the car in front of me. They're not letting them in. And we're talking inches. I'm like, this is wild. Like, I'm a couple of inches from the car in front of me, and they're almost hitting me. And they're just getting a little bit closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. And then, like, the car in front of me starts honking their horn. The car behind me starts honking. And then I just lay on my horn for like a solid 20 seconds, which you're like, 20 seconds, that's not that long. It's a very long time. And they're still trying to get in. What's the lesson here? Well, there's a lot of lessons you could potentially teach. But notice, this is a moment where I'm not at conflict with my children. Something is happening, and I get to go, that's wrong. They're trying to cut in front of everybody. And what was really interesting is Evelyn looked at them, and they saw it was a red handicap thing hanging from their rearview mirror. She was like, oh, they're handicapped. Like, maybe we should let them in. And it's like, no, they're being a bully. You stand up to bullies. Right. Yeah, exactly. Is their handicap that they can't wait in line? Is that their handicap? I have that handicap too. Let me just go cut in front of everybody. Like, what does that have to do with what's going on right here? And they're just inching closer and closer. and they almost hit. They're so close to hitting us, and I just don't give them any space. I don't look at them. I just lay on the horn, and they still they just ignore it, and they're still trying to push in. And we're like, this is what bullies do. And if nobody stands up to bullies, they get what they want, and then they think they can get what they want by bullying other people. No, don't let them in. That's a teachable moment. And it's in a moment of they don't have, you're not accusing them of anything, but they're learning a moral principle. And you're tying it back to a biblical truth. So those moments, precious. I was my heart was racing, but I was still I was cool as cute outside. But the inside, I was like, oh, this guy, can't believe. And then what was really interesting, I don't know if my daughters noticed this, but I was watching in the rearview mirror. So he couldn't get in with me. So he just waited for the truck that was right behind me and tried to squeeze in behind me in front of the truck. That guy was not having it. And he let them know verbally, forcefully, I'll say. And then the guy that was in the passenger seat in the car trying to get in got out of his car. I'm like, he's holding up traffic in the only through lane. See how selfish this is. This is wild stuff. And he gets out and starts yelling at the guy in the truck. I'm like, oh my gosh. What's going to happen? I don't know. Who's going to pull out a gun? Somebody might. I don't know. Oh, nothing like that happened, but fortunately. But it's that's what happens when selfish people get their way. They just keep trying to push their way in. Don't let them do it. Stand up to bullies. And don't be a bully yourself. This is unacceptable behavior. Don't be like this. The goal is to have our children understand moral principles. And then the moral principles, once we place them in their hearts, it will guide them through the multiplicity of everyday circumstances. So we don't want to just give them a rule for every single circumstance. We give them a moral principle that will apply broadly to a bunch of different circumstances. Parents are placing virtues in the hearts of their children so the child can think virtuously later. Parents do this by giving the moral and practical reason why they should do something or shouldn't do something. So the moral reason why. This is when a situation concerns people. You give a moral reason why. You're dealing with people. So imagine children getting out of children's church, going upstairs and running around on a rainy day. Happen late. Right? That's hard to fathom, hard to imagine, but just picture that happening. Right? Let's say your child comes up to you, hands you his or her Bible, and is about to go run. You go, whoa. What's going on here? What are your intentions? Well, I'm just going to go play with my friends. Usually not a bad thing, right? Yeah, I want you to play with your friends. Build those relationships with the church body. Totally cool. However, I'm going to say, please don't do that. And then you give them more, instead of just going, don't do that, sit down, be quiet. And then not telling them why. But every other time I've played with my friends, that hasn't been a problem. What's different now? You have to give them moral reason why. It's not appropriate to run in church because of the presence of others. Right? There's mothers with infants, adults with coffee, Brother Crump and his cane. There's potential danger that must be accounted for and therefore avoided. And that behavior is not morally acceptable in this situation. So it's the principle here is watch out for others. Right? You should be other oriented. Before you engage in an activity, you should think about other people around you. That's the principle. That principle can be applied a lot of different ways. And in this situation, we're in the context of church, and there's other people that have different situations. Now, once you place that in their heart, the expectation is, I might have to remind you a few times for it to get instilled, but now you can use that to think about other situations. Then you raise the expectation on how they think morally about those situations, and you give reminders or correction accordingly. The first time, the parent governs the child. But thereafter, the child has the opportunity to govern themselves because the principle has been placed in their heart. Then it becomes a matter of reinforcing the principle with every subsequent situation. But if there's no principle to stir the heart will not be stirred. Our job is to put that principle. There's also practical reasons why. Not everything is a moral situation, right? There are non-moral action things that we do. A practical reason why would be a situation that relates to things, objects. So please don't splash in the water because you'll get all wet and cold. We live in Alaska. You're going to get cold, right? I don't have a change of clothes for you. Please don't, like, that's a practical thing. Don't splash in the water. You're going to get wet and cold. Then they splash in the water. It's like, well, you're going to be cold. That's your consequence. Like, did you like being cold? No, it was uncomfortable. Okay, maybe next time when I give you the practical reason why you shouldn't do something, maybe you'll listen because you suffered consequence. And there's lots of those natural consequences that happen. This has to be age appropriate, right? Toddlers are not going to understand why. But from birth to about age 3, you are establishing your authority. You're controlling outward behavior because the conscience of the child hasn't developed yet. So you're just hemming in behaviors. Then, when it seems that they can comprehend the why behind what you're teaching, that's when you start to give the moral reason why, the practical reason. Now they're starting to understand. And this training is progressive. This was a really good example from, from the book. That is, all virtues placed in the heart of the child develop from the general to the specific. I mean, just think of God's law. How general is thou shalt not steal? Pretty general. How does that express itself in sinful humans? A lot of different ways. For example, when learning the virtue of honesty, a 3-year-old child will first learn, thou shalt not steal. At 5, the understanding of the virtue broadens. Thou shalt not steal includes, thou shalt not manipulate a situation to gain advantage over another child's toy. Never seen that happen. Yeah. By age 7, different specific meanings include, thou shalt not extort from another. Okay. By age 12, the meaning expands further, continuing the progress until the child comes to the fullness of that virtue. With proper parental guidance at every stage, the child will mature morally, and the meaning of the virtue will expand. So you start from the general, get these specific examples, but it expands the virtue of the child. And there's 2 sides to discipline. There's discipline with encouragement and discipline with correction. We're going to talk about discipline with encouragement today. And then next week, we'll talk about discipline with correction. All right, so what does encouragement mean? Got a ready definition for encouragement. That's good. Up. Any other ways of thinking about encouragement? Or maybe examples of encouragement? Word of encouragement? Word of affirmation? Well, definition of encouragement. Have you ever yourself been encouraged? What was that like? What happened? Okay. Feels nice. It does. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's about a character trait, or it could be like a good job on a task well done, something like that. Excellent. Yeah. Say again. And they support you with it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, I've had many talks with fellow managers at Rock Gym. So this is the situation. They're like, well, this is what I did, and it seemed to turn out well. No, that's exactly right. That is an encouragement, right? It's like you might find yourself in a situation where you're not exactly sure what to do, and so you find someone who's maybe been in that situation before, and they can give you some words of advice. And that's an encouragement, right? It's like, okay, I can do this. Someone else has gone before me, done some things. They've encouraged me to continue in that way. Definitely. Um, to inspire with courage, to cheer up, to cheer on. Encouragement, right? And this is the part of where we're teaching the right thing to do. This is the teaching part. Next week, we'll talk about the correction part, which is what we usually think of when discipline. But now we're talking about the encouragement part, teaching the right thing to do. This can be non-moral skills or moral behavior. Break it into those two parts first. We're going to talk about non-moral skills. What are some non-moral skills? Rock climbing. It takes skill to rock climb. Is it moral? Not really. Like just doing the thing. Is it a moral action to climb a boulder problem? No. It's a non-moral skill. What would be some other ones that you might teach your children? Non-moral skills. Writing your name, yeah. Cleaning, yeah. Sports, any sport, right? Any sport, right? Yeah, definitely. How to drive, right? You can get into a moral situation that I just described. Yeah, while you're driving, but the skill itself, right? The thing that they're doing, it's not moral. But then it's like, okay, well, now that you have this skill, how are you going to use that skill? Now that becomes a moral situation. But you can use encouragement in building up those skills, right? Teach your son or daughter how to throw a baseball, how to throw a football, or I coach a climbing team. Coaching, a lot of this encouragement stuff. Trying to build these skills. It's like, no. You need to place your foot as quietly as possible, watch your toes, touch the hold, and then engage the leg muscles, push against that hold. Now you can look up at the next hold you're going to go to. If you focus on placing your foot correctly, instead of just like, I'm going to reach for this handhold while I flap my foot against the wall and hopefully hit something, it's very inefficient. It's not good climbing. I'm going to have you focus really, really hard on making no sound, because you have to go really slow and just touch the hold. And then you can engage your leg muscles, and then you can reach the next hold. If you do that over and over and over, you'll climb very efficiently. But I'm going to train you by doing the quiet feet or ninja feet exercise. And then once you got ninja feet, awesome. Now we can actually crush that V6. Go do that. But you have to train this very specific area. So other examples that, rock climbing, swimming, riding a bike, playing an instrument, right? There is a best way to do these things. There's also inefficient ways. And a child would be wise to listen and learn. They're going to build up those skills. And parents can provide motivation by praise and goal incentives. So what we've been talking about is mostly praise, right? This is coaching. You're just coaching your children. Coaching requires lots of patience, lots and lots of patience, and being very specific with what you're saying. No. Like you climbed that really well, except for this one spot. Like your foot, like I saw this part of your abs disengage when you were in the cave. You have to keep your core tight. Like I saw your hips just dragged, and that's because your core disengaged. Because that happened, your feet came off the wall. When your feet come off the wall in the cave, they swing out, and then you fell off the climb. But it's all because these abs right here didn't engage. That's where it started. Can't see yours. Yeah, you can't see mine either. But it's like knowing how the body works while climbing and being like, no, it's this led to this, led to that. I'm giving you the reason why. Okay, now when you try that move again, keep your core engaged. It'll make it a lot easier. Well, it'll make it more efficient. keeping your core engaged the whole climb is difficult. You have to be pretty strong. But I'm going to encourage you to do this. And then when you do it, crisp high five. Right. There's this one guy that used to work at the gym. He just had a lot of charisma and almost to a dangerous point. But he would that was his thing. He'd be like, oh, kids would be like, all right, we're going to do this thing. And they're like, yeah. And they would complain and complain. He's like, no, we're going to do this thing. We're doing this workout. We're going to do this exercise. And he's like, I want to see if you can do it. And then kids would do it. And we just before we were about to do it, they're like, what do we get if we do it? And now it's a bribe. Incentive. Right. Depends. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But there's a distinction there. But he would be like, they're like, yeah, what do we get? What do we get? And they're thinking, oh, maybe I can get some candy out of this. And he goes, crisp high five. And those kids would work so hard for a high five. It was kind of astounding. But really, sometimes you don't even need to say the words. Just look at them, put up your hand, get the high five, and it's like you've just communicated everything that they needed to know. Like, good job. I'm proud of you. That was excellent. You didn't have to say anything. But having that kind of relationship, being able to provide that kind of encouragement is really important when you're teaching skills, right? If you're going to use words, right, we use praise, link words of encouragement with your child's effort towards what they're doing, towards their learning their new skill. Praise their effort, not necessarily the outcome. Now, once they reach an outcome, definitely praise that too. But if they become too outcome oriented, then it becomes more of a outward effort, but it's not reaching the heart. What you want to build up is, I want your work ethic to be a try hard work ethic. So if you praise that, then that can be super applicable to every situation where they work hard, which is going to be a lot in their life. So teach the value of hard work by encouraging the effort towards learning a new skill. Unexpected praise is a really strong motivator. So it's like, if in the coaching moment, if I'm coaching rock climbing and I told them to do something, they do it and I go, great job. That was awesome. You did exactly what I told you to do. That's good. But if I'm like, all right, here's the warm up, spread out, go do the climbing warm up. You needed to climb 4v0s, 4v1s, 4v2s. On the 4v0s, you need to have silent feet. On the 4v1s, you need to do this exercise. You need to do that exercise. And then I just have them go and they go do their thing. And then I'm just walking around observing. And then in the moment when I see them do something right, I go, that was excellent. Keep doing that. It was unexpected. And that is, it's just like, it hits on a different level. It's really strong. So if you see something that your child is doing, that you're trying to teach them, and they're doing it right, they're doing it well, you see something, say something. Like, that goes for businesses too. You have, like, I manage the front desk. Like, if I see someone doing something cool or doing something right, like, if I just walk by and go, oh, they're just doing what I told them to do anyways. Or I could encourage them to continue to do, because I want them to do that. Like, that was a really good orientation. Good job. I heard you talk about the different rules and how dangerous it is for kids in the climbing gym. Like, you explained it very well. I heard you do it. Great job. Keep that up. And it's unexpected. It hits on a different level. It's really good. Basically coaching. There's also, there's praise, and then there's also goal incentives. So this is a tangible external reward used to motivate a child to try harder in a particular area of skill development. So these should be reasonable goals that a child, age dependent, can where they're at. So an example might be, and this, you were right, this is a good example. But there's a distinction that I'll make in a bit. Sorry. When you learn how to ride your bike without training wheels, we'll go to the park and we'll ride together. Like, oh, there's a goal. I get to spend more time with my dad, but we get to ride our bikes in a new place that I already like to be. So that motivates them to try harder. And it's cool. Once you do it, then keep your word. You have to keep your, if you give out a goal and they meet it, And then you're like, I don't have time for you. Sorry. Not going to listen to you next time. It's not going to be an incentive. You're going to be like, yeah, whatever. It's not a big deal. So that's skills, but there's also moral behavior. The encouragement for moral behavior. Encouragement does motivate right behavior. Everyone likes hearing, well done. I seem to remember a parable that ends with, well done, how good and faithful servant, right? Like, is that what you're working for? That's like just words of encouragement, right? Well done. So if you hear a well done after doing something right, if you see something, like morally speaking, like a moral behavior, like instead of your siblings punching each other in the face, they're actually playing together, behaving well. If you see that, say something. Like, I really appreciate you guys playing so well while I got this thing done. That's awesome. Like, thank you for doing that. Just saying thank you. Like, hey, thank you for taking care of your dish. I expect my girls to take care of their dishes. But when they do it, if you say thank you, it reinforces that idea. And then I mess it up when I take care of it for them. Because then they're like, oh, Dad will take care of it. They might not say that out loud, but that's what I'm teaching them. And I don't want to teach them that. Then I have to go, tell them to take, and then, yeah. Anyways, but if you see a right behavior, encourage it. See something, say something. When it comes to encouragement, there's a pre-activity encouragement. Pre-activity. This is a verbal way to set a kid up for success. We're gonna get through all this. So, a way to set a kid up for success. This is a verbal reminder, right? Encourage the right behavior by reminding the child of the expected behavior before they're expected to do it and the moral reason why it's expected. So, for example, it'd be like, Emma, Pastor Perry's coming over later. Be sure to say hello when he gets here. That would be very respectful. That's like a verbal reminder of what to expect when this situation happens. And it's dealing between persons, right? There's also dialogue questions. So this is where the child tells the parent what's expected. It's usually for ages 5 and under, but it can be used for any age. So it's like, okay, you're driving into the parking lot at Target or Walmart or wherever. And you go, okay, who can tell me the rules for the parking lot? Like, no running, stay by your side, hold your hand, pay attention to your surroundings. Like, excellent. Like, I just ask you a question, they tell you what the expectation is, and now they have it in their head what they should be doing before they get out of the car. Like, cool. You set them up for success. Positive words. Speak in the positive. We use this in our rescue situations. So there's someone on the wall. They're not attached to a rope or an auto belay or anything. They're 35 feet off the ground. If they let go, they're going to hit the deck. So, okay, rescue time. Grab your equipment, head up the wall. It's like, hey, stop climbing. Get their attention. Stop climbing. What's your name? Keep hanging on. I'm coming to get you. Don't move. Keep hanging on. I'm coming to get you. Keep hanging on. Instead of saying, don't let go, because now they're thinking of you have to think of letting go before you can negate it. So instead of saying, don't let go, keep hanging on. Now they're thinking about gripping more, right? There's a difference there. Use positive, speak in the positive. So instead of don't spill your cereal on the way to the table, maybe try, see how carefully you can carry your cereal to the table. Hand them a bowl. Don't get out of bed, like you put them to sleep. Don't get out of bed. Like, obey daddy and stay in bed. Now you're using the value of obedience and telling them what they should do. Don't talk so much versus you need to learn how to become a better listener. Don't leave a mess for everybody to clean up versus be responsible and clean up after yourself. Speaking in the positive term rather than the negative. And then there's post-activity encouragement. Right. This reinforces a behavior after the fact. This is the proper use of rewards and verbal praise. So again, affirmation. You're verbally encouraging your kids to do the little things and the big things. Encouraging the little daily things can make a huge difference. Again, this could be a thank you. It can go a long way. Try saying, I need your help with something. For example, I need your help with something. Could you use a nicer tone with your sister? And it's like a question, and then they're getting the moral principle with that. High fives, hugs, great job helping your sister. Thank you for taking care of your mother while she's been sick. Like verbal affirmation. Those are good things. Rewards. So tangible could be candy or something, or intangible, like a trip to the park. These are used to reinforce and confirm a behavior that's already been completed. That's super important. You're reinforcing something that's already been done. You're not trying to get them to do something by giving them a reward. Do not use a reward to stimulate behavior. Offering your child something in exchange for good behavior is a bribe. It's a manipulative appeal to the child's lust of the flesh and eyes. It's inappropriate. What you do is you call attention to the right behavior after it's happened, and then reward it in some way by demonstrating your appreciation. So, because you were so good at the store today, I want to buy you a special treat. Pick out whatever candy. Like, good job being good in this. Careful not to overuse it, because then they'll just associate, oh, right behavior. I get what I want. So now I'm just doing the external thing instead of it reaching the heart. So giving the moral reason why is also important as you reinforce the behavior. Giving the moral reason why. Okay, that's encouragement. Next week, we'll talk about correction. But let's pray. Our Father in heaven, thank you so much for your wisdom. Thank you for your word. Lord, help us to parent and raise our children. Pray that you'd help us to take these principles and apply them not only to our own lives, but first and foremost to our own lives, and then be able to use to raise godly children, bring honor and glory to you. Lord, I pray that you be with us this morning. Praise your name through song and worship you through the preaching of your word. Pray that every heart would be ready to receive it. Lord, be with us as we worship in Jesus.